To have that connection brings a certain fire inside of you. It feels real.
If that's not joy, I don't know what is.
I've always been grateful for every opportunity.
There's a lot of people that want to simplify their lives, but don't really know how to do that.
There's a beauty to flexibility and a simplicity.
Throughout the world, there are people who have created lives of deep meaning and happiness by connecting with nature and the processes of simplification. Come with me on a journey and let's find out how they've done it. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to take a bow making class from Aram Barsch, and I think it was one of the most spiritual things I've ever done. Recently, I got together with Aram and his father Wulf to learn about the art of staying connected.
I was 6 years old when I was exiled, and I was alone. I mean, literally alone. No parents with me or anything like this. And you learn what becomes absolutely essential, and what in a situation like this can make you happy and joyful, and really think life is great. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I've been on the other side too. I've worked in big cities. I've worked in London. I've worked in New York or Houston or whatever. And
Doing what?
I was a university professor for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
As a craftsman, teaching philosophy and things like that.
How did you feel at age 6 when you were in that situation? Were you able to find joy, or was it fear?
You know, a lot of people think fear is an unmanly or whatever kind of thing. Fear is actually a good quality to have. You know, if you read all the Greeks and all this kind of stuff, they base their philosophy on fear and the ability to survive because of fear. Because being afraid of certain situations makes you much more aware of the situation, and then you can enjoy the situation.
He was in the ultimate, if you could call it that, survival situation, and as a very young child to boot. And I think that has instilled in him a real need for self-sufficiency and the ability to fend for oneself. And so I was raised from a kid, learning just everything he could teach me and everything that that he could arrange for me to learn. You know, bringing other teachers in and exposing myself and my brother to any experience or any skill that he could, so that we would develop our skill with our hands and our ability to make and produce pretty much anything we need.
When I was a little kid, I always wanted to come over here. I always wanted to live in the Rocky Mountains. And I thought, you know, if you pick a continent and you figure out the mountains in the middle, and then in the middle of the mountains a nice valley, that would be okay. America always had a certain attraction from reading Karl May and these guys. There's nothing like this anywhere in the world.
So you went away for a period. You were running a large hunting ranch in Texas.
Well, the situation there was great, and in a lot of ways I still miss it, because I had 187,000 acres or 605 square miles of contiguous land that were all under my charge as far as the hunting and the wildlife on the place went, and that was wonderful. But the problem was I couldn't live the quality of lifestyle with my children and my wife that I feel is paramount. And so after time, as that realization came, you know, we made the decision that money was less important than quality of life, and that we would choose our riches in other ways than monetary value, and we moved back to Boulder.
So you guys are deeply connected with this land on a number of fronts, including farming it and working it, being a part of it, and in some ways, sounds like, well, horses have been a big part of your background.
You know, working with a horse, there's no way that you can compare that with working with a tractor. I mean, I think it would be, I think it would be possible to fall in love with a tractor, you know, but it would be more difficult.
Yes.
And the horse, especially one that responds and likes you and gives his or her everything, because you know, and the horse knows that it has to be done. There's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it.
Do you feel the same connection
With
the
horses? I do. I might make him mad by saying that even more so, perhaps. I have grown up, you know, thanks to my father, from a child working with horses and riding horses. There's an old saying that goes, the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a man, and it's very true. You know, I think that the idiot that invented the internal combustion engine ought to be hung, because I'd prefer that everybody still rode horses.
But you have a truck.
I do have a truck. No, but I do. I have several saddle horses, and I remember one experience that I'd had. I was riding a Mustang that she'd been caught when she was 2 years old, and at the time she was 3, and I was riding her up here in the hills behind the house, and I'd put a pretty nice handle on her. She was very nice to ride at the time, and I remember thinking that everything, the bridle she was wearing, the saddle I was riding, I had made, and I had trained her, and so everything about the whole experience was things that I had been able to, you know, through my experience and skill, been able to produce, and it was a pretty cool thought and feeling as I was riding along.
A really good hand tool, you know, and most of them are hundreds of thousands of years old, you know, the design. A really good, there's nothing like it when you have it in your hand and you work with it. You know, I've owned Ferraris and Lamborghinis in my life.
Really?
But to have something that's no power between you and the tool, and you'll be able to make things with it, there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. And, you know, philosophy means the love of truth. You know, the study of truth, the love of truth. And it's a truthful moment when you create something.
So are there any aspects of your time in the city, or Lamborghinis and Ferraris, that you could say, boy, I really miss that?
The Lamborghinis and the Ferraris.
I haven't been to Manhattan in probably 2 or 3 years, but I like the museums, because there's certain things that you can't get here that is there. And I'm a big sucker for good food.
I'm with you.
So, you know.
What do you think about computers, iPhones? Do you have any thoughts, observations about where things are going with that?
We have a very nice library. And reading requires, to exercise your mind, that it actually becomes stronger and stronger. The memory, all that's connected with it, the cognitive thinking and all that kind of stuff. Computers do exactly the opposite. BYU at the end forced me to have a computer the last, 3 years at BYU. I never used it. But they came, they put a big computer on my desk, and they gave me one of those laptops and all this kind of stuff. Spent a few $1,000s. I never used it. So I have never really found a real good reason for it.
Young people in our world are becoming more and more familiar and integrated into a cyber world and out of a real world. You know, I think most of those kids 7 or 8 years old or younger are far more skilled on any kind of an electronic gadget than I am, you know, an iPhone or a computer. But most of them also don't understand that an egg comes out of a chicken, and that milk comes from a cow, and that meat was once an animal.
So some of the activities that you do, such as hunting, you're considered a very accomplished hunter. How does that connect one with Earth? What do you see that brings into the fold?
I absolutely love deer and elk. You know, I can spend hours watching them and interacting with them. That doesn't mean that I'm not willing to harvest one and eat it, because I feel like wild meat is some of the healthiest meat out there. The animal's been healthy all its life. It hasn't been injected with chemicals and antibiotics and growth hormones, and I know that it's going to be good for my body and for my children's body. Same thing would go for a beef raised in the field, raised right. It's been happy, you know, it's not raised in in a feedlot and fed a bunch of chemicals. And so I feel that that's important.
You know, when we bought this place, there were maybe 10, 12 trees on this place, on the 70 acres or 60 something acres. And now there's probably 1,000 trees on this place. Nevertheless, we heat with wood. I mean, we obviously love trees, but the tree, you know, gives us shade, gives us beauty, gives us all these, and also gives us heat. Keeps us warm in the, cool in the summer, and keeps us warm in the winter. It's a total cycle that you know, it's for the benefit and use of man in the proper thing, not to exploit it, not to bleed it, but to you know, you give your part, they give their part. And it's a very beautiful cycle.
Shifting gears from much of your life has been around art. And what does art bring to the table?
There's no question about it that mankind needs beauty to survive. You know, we are very good at being destructive. What does it say? Before the great man, the earth was a paradise, and afterwards it was a desert. It's that kind of thing. We have the ability to do beautiful things. And, you know, you can see them, but you can take a landscape, and with the ability that God has given you to create, you can make it even more beautiful and more satisfying. And it's one of the greatest things for a human being to do. When you make beautiful things, you don't have the need to destroy things. So you either go to war and destroy everything, or you make beautiful things. You can't do both at the same time.
I'm hard-pressed to think of two people I know of that are more spiritually connected to the things they do. Please join me next episode when I interview Blake Spalding of Hell's Backbone Grill, and she'll teach us how to better feed our DNA.
Me Simple is building a website around the topics of simple living, finding gratitude, and connection with nature and the world around us. If you know of individuals, books, articles, or videos that address these topics, please share them with us today at mesimple.com.